we'll let him take it away.
All right. Hey, thank you, Dylan. Appreciate it. Yes, as Dylan mentioned, my name is Dave Hansen with Rubio Monocoat. Just to give you a little basic rundown of what we'll be covering today, we'll be going over how Rubio works, how it compares to other finishes. We'll also talk about some of the basics of application, important things like the curing process, care and maintenance, and also, of course, if you have questions, feel free to ask at any time. Just type it into the chat window there. But to give you a basic rundown of Rubio Monocoat, we've actually been around since the 60s. We were invented in 1963. We originally started selling exclusively to a large global furniture manufacturer as a furniture finish. And then in the year 1995, they started developing our flagship product, which is Oil Plus 2C. That was developed starting in 1995, took about 5 years of research and development before we released it. And then was released. Our product is made in Belgium. So we've been out as a Oil Plus 2C product since the year 2000. And we've been growing like crazy. We started importing it here to the US in the year 2007. We got kind of cut our teeth on the flooring side of things for the first 5-10 years, and then we really started moving into the furniture and interior millwork world. So it gives you a little background on our finish. We've been around for quite a while. How our finish compares to other finishes out there. So we'll kind of give you a little visualization. So what most people are familiar with is film forming finishes. So that would be your polyurethanes, your lacquers, paints, really any of those types of products are film forming finishes. They work by sitting on top of the wood, forming a layer and protecting from above. They give you a very nice seal, but they do, one of the potential downsides, depending on your preference, is that they leave the wood kind of like with a layer of plastic over the top. So the wood kind of loses a little bit of that natural look and feel to it. Okay. Historically, another type of finish is penetrating finishes. So penetrating oils, waxes, those have historically been used to preserve wood for thousands of years. And those work by penetrating into the wood and essentially sealing it from within. They provide a very natural look and feel that a lot of people appreciate. Potential downsides, again, opinion, is that it's going to require a lot of effort on the front end. You're going to need to do multiple coats on the front end. And then you will also need to periodically re-oil and re-wax those, maybe a couple times a year as the oils and waxes saturate deeper and draw into the wood. It leaves the surface looking a bit dry or thirsty. Okay, our product works a little bit differently. It's classified as a hard wax oil or a hardening wax oil, and it works by penetrating into the wood. It actually forms a molecular level bond with the cellulose fibers in the wood, and it strengthens the wood internally as well as sealing and protecting it. So it basically locks all the protective layers in that top inner layer of the wood, and it does not penetrate further after that initial application. So what that allows you to do is essentially in just one coat, Monocoat, one coat, protect, color your wood, so you have a stain and sealer all in one. So it's a huge time savings, and it's also very easy on the maintenance. You don't have to periodically go back and re-oil or re-wax that. It's very, very minimal on that side of things. So that's kind of a little bit about how our product is different from other finishes out there. As far as some basics of application, one of the benefits of Rubio is that it is ultra easy to apply. It is just one coat. Because of the molecular bonding and how it bonds to cellulose fibers, once it's treated, if you do another coat, you will basically, it will not bond with what's already there. So it basically makes it nearly impossible to get lap lines or overlap marks. If you're doing like a large piece where you're staining a big area, you never have to worry about lap lines or overlap marks as you do it. Basically, just work it into the wood, let it sit for about anywhere around 3 to 5 minutes for that oil to penetrate in, form a bond with the cellulose fibers in the wood, and then you just vigorously wipe off all the excess with a rag and you're done. One step, that's it, super easy. So I'll demonstrate that here. We're gonna do a custom color. We're using kind of a wild color. It's called peacock green. It's kind of an out there color, but we'll give it a shot just for fun. So we're gonna mix that and we're gonna put in a little bit of super white, which is our most heavily pigmented white color. Okay, we have a number of different colors. Also, just to kind of give you a little heads up, this is some of the colors that we have. It's 55 different colors where you have stain and finish all together. Do a quick little mixture here. Not too scientific, but you can mix your colors if you so choose to. We also, our most popular color is called Pure, which is our clear coat, which anytime you're working with woods where you just want the natural beauty of the wood to speak for itself, Pure is the one you want to go with. Also, it is a 2-component finish, so you have part A, which is the oil, that's doing most of the work. Then you have part B, which is an accelerator that speeds up the cure time. Okay, we'll talk about the cure time a little bit more as we move forward. Also, with wood preparation, we recommend sanding to 120 grit. You can go a little bit finer than that if you wish, like 150, but no more than 180. Reason being, our product needs to penetrate into the wood to work correctly. And so if you sand too fine, it just closes off the wood grain and closes those wood pores so that not enough oil gets in, and you will lose protection. So almost without a doubt, if we ever have somebody that gets like water rings on a table they made, the first question we ask is, what do you sand to? If you sanded too fine, that you may be more susceptible to water penetrating the finish. So that's kind of the reason why you don't want to go too fine. All right, so basically I'll just pour a little bit of this onto the wood. A little bit goes a long way, so you don't need a ton. I'll show you the pad I'm using here, but you just kind of work it into the wood, okay? Just work it in. It doesn't matter if you go with the grain, against the grain, that it doesn't matter at all. So it's very forgiving on that side. It's really nothing too technical as far as the application goes. What I'm using to apply it with, this is just a white buffing pad. These are pretty nice because they don't absorb a lot of product. You don't want to use something like a rag where you're just going to soak up a ton of product. We'll talk a little bit about the coverage and why that's important in just a second here. So just work it in. Normally, you would want to give it about 3 to 5 minutes to penetrate. You want to get it off within 15 minutes. So don't let it sit longer than 15 minutes on there. The reason being is it will start to set up a bit and be hard to remove all the excess if you let that sit too long, okay? But I'm just going to get a rag and just basically wipe it off as best as possible, with hopefully not making too much of a mess in my in one of the rooms at my house. That would be. Yeah, so what's happening here is the product is penetrating into the wood. It's forming a bond with the cellulose fibers, and it is hardening internally, okay? And once you get all that excess off, essentially that's it. You're done. It's finished. There's no need to go back and put another coat on. People always ask, "Oh, should I do another coat? Do I need to seal it with anything or a top coat?" Yeah, it's very simple. You don't really need to do any of that. Okay. So here we go.
So Dave, we have a quick question.
Was there a question there, Dylan?
Yes. Ellen asks, what do you do if you sand to 150 or 180 and after application and buffing the wood doesn't feel smooth?
Okay, really good question. So a couple things. So it's fine if you go to 150 or 180, but the finer you go, the more some of that water resistance is going to go down. We found that you're usually pretty good if you go to 150 or 180, but above that, you do start to lose performance, okay? Now, as far as the wood feeling smooth, okay, that is a preference thing, okay? Our product is going to have more texture to it than some film forming finishes, and you're gonna feel the wood. So whether you like that or not is a preference thing, okay? A lot of people that choose Rubio do it because they like that feel of the wood, okay? Also, another thing, our product, the primary ingredients in our product are linseed oil, beeswax, and carnauba wax. And so the wax in the product will give it a smoother feel than you might expect sanding to 120, 150, or 180. It's going to be smoother than you might expect, but still it's not going to be that piano, glass smooth type feel. There will be some texture to it. But so that, good question there. Also, you'll notice on this particular piece, I don't know how well that's gonna, looks like you can see it. You'll see that the top part is much darker than the bottom part. With the wood prep there, the top part, I actually damp tacked it with water to open up the wood grain. And the bottom part was, so they're both sanded to 120. The top part was water popped, and then the bottom part was just sanded to 120 without opening up the wood grain. So this is just a way to manipulate the color. If you are doing a piece where you're staining it and you want to get a richer color, that's one way to do it. It's more common for our flooring folks, but some furniture people do that as well. Additionally, that sort of illustrates as well the nature of how the wood is open or closed will affect the penetration and the pigment there. So same principle, if you were sanding the wood to 120, 150, or 180, it would get, and you're using a color, it would get lighter as you sand finer. You're not going to get as much pigment and color penetrating into the wood.
So Ellen additionally asks whether or not she can do a light sanding with 400 after application to further smooth it out.
You can. One thing that we recommend often as a maintenance thing that can happen if there's ever been damage to the surface is using a maroon pad. So we recommend the maroon pad. If you wanted to use, something, I forget exactly what she mentioned, but that is also possible. You just don't want to get it too hot. So if you're doing that, try to keep the surface moving so it doesn't heat up too much. Because if it gets too hot, this is like extremely rare, but it's theoretically possible. If it gets too hot, at some point the oil and the wax could begin to separate. That really is a blue moon type situation, but just as a thing you want to avoid it getting too hot if you're doing that in between coats. And if you are going to do that, we also recommend waiting at least 24 hours for it to start to cure before you do any kind of sanding in between coats if you decide you want to do another coat. Good question there. Okay, another thing with our product that is very nice and important, it is a zero VOC product, so there's no solvents whatsoever. It's considered 100% solids, which means everything in this can is doing work. There's nothing that's off-gassing or evaporating. It's got a very light, light scent to it. To give you an idea of coverages, so this is the size that most people, furniture makers are using. This will do about, it's a 350 milliliters, and it does between 100 to 150 square feet typically, is what you get out of that. This larger size does about 300 to 500 square feet in the 1.3 liter size. So a little bit goes a long way. That's kind of why you don't want to waste a lot of it in the rags. So we kind of went over the basic application in the wood prep. We'll talk a little bit about some pre-treatments that we have. So the standard product that most people are using is the Oil Plus 2C, okay? We do have some pre-treatments on there. This is one that I did earlier. It's called Fumed. So this was fumed on white oak. Fumed is you see it's a clear liquid there. It's a chemically reactive stain that reacts to the tannins in wood. So it's primarily used in white oak and a little bit less in red oak, and then occasionally in other species. But if there's no tannins in the wood, you're really gonna have almost no reaction there, okay? So it gives it kind of like an aged look, similar to what you might get with vinegar and steel wool or ammonia fuming, but it's got no scent to it at all. It's odorless and more controllable than some of those, okay? So that kind of gives you an aged look to it. We also have a brand new product, which is called pre-aging, okay? So here's some of them. I don't know how well you'll be able to see that, but a number of different colors here. There's basically 10 colors. Those are different shades of browns and grays, and they're meant to look like aged wood, okay? And they're meant to give you the look of a reactive stain, like those vinegar and steel wools and ammonia fuming, but without actually being reactive. So what that allows you to do is it allows you to use that product on any wood species, so you're not limited to high tannin content species. You can use it on any species. We'll give it that kind of weathered or aged look if that's something that you're interested in. Both of those products will need to be coated over with Oil Plus 2C. So if you use them, they don't provide any protection. They're just a pre-treatment to kind of give you a specific look that you're going for, okay? The third option for pre-treatments is on this very bottom row, okay? You will see Pre-Color Easy. These are all essentially just water-based stains that you can use as a pre-treatment. That will give you, here's one that I did earlier, that will give you more of a painted look, but also to where you can still see the grain in the wood, okay? So it's kind of more uniform across the board. So if you are doing something where you want kind of a painted look, but you still want to be able to see the wood grain and not have it totally covered up, Pre-Color Easy is an option for that as well. That also allows you to get a two-tone look if you're layering colors. So I'll do one here with, we'll do it over the pre-aging. So here's a pre-aging sample that I made. This is the color called Authentic Number 1. And we're gonna put Oil Plus 2C over the top. We're gonna use a color called Corn Silk. Give that a try. I've not done this color combo before, so we'll see how it turns out. And just gonna work it in a little bit here. The Corn Silk is kind of a creamy vanilla type of color. And you'll kind of see there'll be a little bit of a two-tone type feel to it once we do that. But that product Pre-Aging is a brand new product that we just released this year. It's only been out for a handful of months, but so far we've had a lot of people that really like it. It gives you some interesting style options to get some very unique and different looks. It's the color I went over the top with is a fairly subtle color, so it's not too overpowering. So here we'll see that it's the Pre-Aging, and it's probably a little hard to see from here, but that Corn Silk, the kind of vanilla-y color, is sort of in the grain there, in the open grain pores. So it kind of gives you a little bit of visual texture, a little bit of depth there when you layer colors like that. So just do a quick time check here. All right, when we're talking about curing, okay? The curing, it takes, if you're using Part A and Part B together, okay, it'll be fully cured in a week. It's essentially dry to the touch right away, okay? So you don't have to worry about sawdust getting in there. You don't have to worry about, you know, like with a polyurethane or something like that, if like hairs or your beard falls up into the finish and it's gonna stick there and look gross, you never have to worry about that stuff. It's dry to the touch right away, but it does take a week to fully cure. Okay, if you use Part A by itself without mixing it with Part B, it'll take about 3 weeks to fully cure. Also, your water resistance will be diminished just a little bit if you use Part A by itself. So we recommend that if it's a tabletop, a countertop, your floors, anything like that, we do recommend using Part A and B together. If it's something that's more decorative in nature, a jewelry box, a vertical accent wall, something along those lines, Part A is just fine and you don't need to worry about Part B for that, okay? Also, once you mix Part A and B together, you have about 6 hours to work with the product. So you only want to mix what you're going to use within that 6-hour time window. It mixes in a 3 to 1 ratio. So 3 parts oil to 1 part of the accelerator. So if you're not going to use it all at once, mix it in a 3 to 1 ratio and save the rest for a later date. So as I mentioned, that full cure is right about a week, okay? So for folks that are using it on their floors, we say you can start walking on your floors in like 24 to 36 hours. It's a usable surface after that roughly 24 to 36 hours, but you want to avoid it getting wet during that first week while it's curing, and you want to not do any kind of wet maintenance. So no cleaning during that curing process, okay? Let me see here. As far as care and maintenance goes, okay? So care and maintenance, we make a product called soap, which is what we'd recommend for just like cleaning. So if this is on your counters or a kitchen table, you can either use just a damp rag with water is fine. You can use our soap, but you would not want to use any off-the-shelf cleaners, okay? Reason being, our product is a very natural product. Linseed oil, beeswax, carnauba wax, any type of off-the-shelf cleaners, those have surfactants in them that are designed to break down fats, oils, and waxes, stuff that you find in a kitchen, and that's what our product is. So you either want to use our soap or just water, but no kind of off-the-shelf cleaners, okay? We also have a product called Renew, which is a maintenance oil. This is used on an as-needed basis. You probably wouldn't need it for, a couple years down the road. For our flooring customers, we say we'd recommend it in the 3 to 5 year range. But for furniture, just sort of whenever you feel like it needs a little sprucing up, probably a couple years down the road is when you might think of that. But the Renew oil, we're going to do this on an old piece of walnut that I have here. But basically, it's applied the same way as our regular oil. It's super easy. You just pour a little bit on the wood, work it in. This size bottle right here, it's 100 milliliters, pretty small. That'll do approximately 100 square feet or so. So a little bit goes a long way, and it should last you, forever. But yeah, you basically just work it in. And then you're just going to go back and rag it off just like you did the Oil Plus 2C. This essentially is the Renew is basically our pure oil. Okay, so our pure, as I mentioned, that's kind of the clear coat, which is by far our most popular, is just the clear. And then it's also got a little bit of solvent in it that will allow it to penetrate in and bond with the Rubio that's there. If you just put another coat of the pure without any type of abrasion or anything, you would basically just wipe off whatever you just put on there. So you just essentially just wipe it off real good. And that's it, you're done. Got a real nice new looking piece there. Also, a little bit about sheen, okay? Our product is very low sheen. It's a matte finish, comes in at about a 5% sheen level, okay? So very matte. Most people really like that. We do have an additional product that's a different type of maintenance oil. So the Renew, if you want to keep that original sheen, you use Renew. There's another maintenance oil if you want to boost the sheen level. It's called Universal Maintenance Oil. That will take it to approximately a 10% sheen level. So still fairly low sheen, like a low satin, but it will also double the sheen from a 5 to a 10%. So it is noticeable sheen increase, but it's also going to be on the low side. If you're wanting like a high sheen or a high gloss finish, then there's other products that would be a better fit for that type of a finish. Ours is never going to get you a real high sheen, okay?
So Dave, a couple of folks have questions about if they get any damage to the finish.
Okay, so if it's surface scratches and little like minor stuff, Renew's what you'd want to go with, super easy. If it's more substantial damage where like you've actually, like say you've gouged it and there's a big gouge there, at that point you would probably need to do some sanding, okay? If If it's kind of in between those, worse than like real small little scratches, but not like a huge gouge in it, then that would be what we call a renovation application, where you just go basically buff over the entire surface with a maroon pad, kind of open it up again, and then apply some of the original Oil Plus 2C. Whatever color you did in the Oil Plus 2C, that will restore the color and take care of scratches that might need a moderate amount of sanding. If it's like I said, if it's a gouge, this Renew oil will cover the gouge and make it not look as noticeable, but it's not going to sand the wood. So if you want to sand it out, you'd have to sand it back to get anything that's like a deep cut in the wood or something of that nature.
And they don't have to worry about any wet line appearances when they're repairing it, right?
So if you are, like, let's say there was just a small damaged spot right here that required sanding, okay? If you're doing that, the one thing that it's usually pretty easy to match the color. What can be an issue is the sheen, okay? It can be something where if you just sand one little area and sand it real good, it could get you to where there's a little bit of a sheen difference. If you do that, that's when we'd recommend kind of buffing over the entire surface with a maroon pad to kind of basically even it back out and kind of get you a consistent uniform surface. So it's when you're doing repair work, our finish is much more repairable than any type of film forming finish, but it requires a little bit of finesse. The color is usually very simple. The sheen you may have to play with a little bit to get it to be exactly like you like it. That takes a little bit more skill on that side, but the color and you can always do the entire surface without too much work. Even if worst case scenario, something really bad happens and you have to sand it all down, it doesn't. It's fairly easy to sand off. So that doesn't happen very often. But if you did have somebody that dragged their TV across it and just trashed it, that would be kind of the worst case scenario. Cool. Let's see. So I think that's kind of the bulk of what I have. So if you guys have questions, we can start getting ready for that. Also, another thing that is an option out there, okay? We have exterior product line. It's called Hybrid Wood Protector. So if you're doing outdoor projects, Hybrid Wood Protector is a really nice option. It's going to give you a very similar look and feel to the interior product, our Oil Plus 2C. But the exterior, it has a fungicide that will help prevent mold and fungal growth. It has it actually will bond to itself. So with outdoor stuff, you have to maintain them, typically annually. You basically just clean the surface and apply another coat over the top. You don't need to do any type of abrasion with the Hybrid Wood Protector. And then the other thing that it has is it has UV stabilizers that help prevent fading in the wood. So if you do have outdoor projects, most of the woodcrafts do not stock the Hybrid Wood Protector. So if you need it, they can special order that if it's something that you're interested in, the Hybrid Wood Protector. So there's a bunch of colors. There's some natural wood tones and then some, I don't know, well, you can see them, but some crazy colors too. So if you ever got an outdoor project, we have an exterior finish line.
And it's very quick for anyone curious. It's very quick to order from Rubio. We usually see orders from you guys within 2 to 3 business days. So it's a pretty fast turnaround time if you need it quickly.
Yep, we do our best to get it out the door real fast. So if there is something, a particular color, with all of our 55 colors, it's very hard to keep everything in stock. So if there's ever something that is not available, we'll get it out to you as quick as possible. So yeah, we can basically open it up to questions. If you guys have any questions, go for it.
So at this point, if anyone has any questions, you can either type them into the chat and I'll relay them, or you can unmute yourself and ask your question directly. So anyone who has questions, feel free to go ahead.
So one thing that I mentioned, this the cleaner product that we have, what that does, one thing that is important when you're applying Rubio is you want to make sure that the surface is clean of any sawdust, okay? Because of the nature of our product and how it bonds to the cellulose fibers in the wood, you don't want to have any sawdust on there. So you have a couple options. If you were going to water pop it, then you can just damp tack it with water and there's no need to use the cleaner. You can just vacuum the heck out of it, spray it down with an air compressor, get it as dust free as possible. Or you can use the cleaner, which is our recommended way. The cleaner basically electrostatically removes the dust off of the wood without opening up the wood grain. So it will basically not do any type of popping. It will leave it a clean sanded surface, and it will electrostatically remove the dust. So the cleaner is the best way to prep it. But if you don't want to do that, you can just make sure you got as much of that sawdust off the wood surface as possible.
So we have a question here. What's the cure time if you don't use the accelerator? You just use the oil plus.
Sure. So if you just use part A, you're looking at a 3-week cure. Okay, and so that'll be fully cured in 3 weeks. So avoid it getting wet during that time. But as I mentioned, it's still going to be dry to the touch right away. So like as long as you're not putting drinks on it, cleaning it, spilling stuff all over the place, there's no problem with that. So if you wanna wait that 3 weeks, it's not really that big of a deal. I will say it does drop the water resistance down a little bit. It's still going to be a very water resistant surface, but it's not going to be as resistant as if you use it with the hardener. It also, part B will also give it a little bit of additional hardness. It's still going to be a very durable finish without it, but if you want maximum protection, so we always say countertops, kitchen tables, floors, those are kind of mandatory that use part B. Anything that's like, doesn't require maximum protection, you're fine with just part A by itself.
All right, so we have a question about mixing custom colors.
Yes.
Do you recommend only mixing Rubio with Rubio, or is it possible to add other dyes to Rubio?
Okay, so good question. We only recommend basically mixing within our colors. So essentially pre-treatments within a particular product line. So the pre-color easy, the pre-aging, any of those, you can mix any of the pre-treatments together as long as it's within the same kind of product line category. And then our oil plus 2C, which is what most people are doing, you can mix any of those colors, but we don't recommend mixing it with other tints or dyes. People experiment with that, and I've heard that it works, but it's something that we don't test and we can't guarantee an outcome. So there is a chance that it will affect the curing of it. So we don't recommend it. I wouldn't do it, but woodworkers like to experiment and figure, just see what happens. So, but not recommended.
Someone asks whether Part B affects the sheen dramatically.
No, you're pretty much going to get the standard sheen whether you use Part B or not. So it's not going to affect that very much. The only time it affects the sheen is if you were to kind of maybe like say double the amount of accelerator, where it's like 2 parts of accelerator instead of 1 part. That will give you a slight sheen boost, but it will also make the finish, I'm not sure the right word, but slightly more brittle, if that makes sense. It's not super precise on that, but that's the only time it's going to affect the sheen, is if you up the amount of accelerator more than we would say is what we'd recommend. Otherwise, it's going to give you that 5% sheen level whether you use it or not.
So Ellen wants to know, instead of using the cleaner, can I clean the surface with mineral spirits?
It would be better to use acetone if that was available. We don't recommend mineral spirits. I know a lot of people use mineral spirits, and for the most part, it's not that big of a deal, but acetone's better. Our cleaner's the best, acetone's fine, and then we don't recommend mineral spirits. But there are people out there that swear by mineral spirits, so
Yeah, I, for example, swear by mineral spirits. I
yeah.
did everything with that before it, and anecdotally, I've not run into any problems with it yet.
That's what I've heard from most people, but we have had, the case here and there where someone has run into problems and they've used mineral spirits, but that's, it's not super common that we hear that. And a lot of people use mineral spirits. So if you want to make your own rules, go ahead.
Any other questions from anyone? All right. Dave, if you could go ahead and go to your computer and transfer host back to me.
Okay.
I swapped it to you for stability concerns.
Sure. Let me see here.
You'll go to participants and click on me and click more, and then do transfer host or make host.
Got it. I think I did that.
All right, perfect.
Got it? Okay.
So, Wayne wants to see a close-up.
Okay. Any particular close-up? We can do the walnut one here. I'll do a couple close-ups. So
This is the walnut piece, trying to get you to see that a little bit. We'll do, here's the custom color that we did, where the top part was water popped and the lower part was just sanded to 120 without damp tacking it with water. And as I mentioned, that sheen, nice kind of flat 5% sheen level, so very, very matte there. Yeah, it's kind of, I wish I had a little bit better lighting, but that's the limits we have at the moment. But yeah, people, things like sheen are a total preference thing, but we've found that there's a lot of people that really like that kind of low sheen, very natural look. And of course, there's always a place for the high sheen kind of fine furniture, like showroom type pieces as well. So, whatever your preference is, there's great finish for you.
Are the Rubio dyes water-based or alcohol-based?
Okay, so the pre-color easy and the pre-aging, well, actually, and the fume, they're all water-based. Okay, one thing with those are all water-based. One thing that's a little unique about the pre-aging, so the new product that we released, this one right here, the pre-aging, that one is for a water-based stain, it actually dries extremely slowly. So a benefit of that is that you're never going to get like lap lines or overlap marks, whereas some of the other ones with water-based stains, you want to work pretty fast. This one, you don't have to worry about that, but it takes approximately 24 hours to dry. So you want to give it a little bit of time before you coat over it with the Oil Plus 2C if you're using the pre-aging. The same with the fumed. So the chemically reactive one, that one actually dries right away, within an hour or two it's dry. But it is, because it's chemically reactive, there's actually still a reaction taking place. So you want to wait approximately 36 hours for that one. The water-based stain that we did, the pre-color easy, that one is just as soon as it's dry, just go over it with the oil. So a couple hours and you're good to go for that one.
Ellen wants to know if you can go over again the ways to get a little bit more sheen out of it.
Okay, so the ways to get a little more sheen. So the easy way is 24 hours after 24 hours after application. Basically, just go over with our product called Universal Maintenance Oil. That comes in the 100 milliliter bottle, and a bottle of this size will do approximately 100 square feet of that. So a small bottle, I mean, that'll do you a couple of good sized projects if you want to boost the sheen up a little bit, and that will double the sheen. Okay, and so that's kind of the way that most people, if they want more sheen, are doing it. Now there are some more. There are some techniques that people out there have experimented with. For example, I know of a furniture maker that makes like really high-end rocking chairs, you know, that are, I don't know, $2,500 a piece, something like that. But they're beautiful, and he basically does a coat of the Pure, so the Oil Plus 2C Pure. Waits a few days and does a light sanding with a higher grit sandpaper, and then applies another coat over the top. So those are things you can play around with, but the easy way is just universal maintenance oil. If not, like light sanding at a finer grit reapplication. You're not going to get too much by burnishing it in, because it is a penetrating finish, so there's not a film there. But those are a couple of the ways that people will use to boost the sheen. But primarily, you're never going to get like that much sheen. So you can get a little bit more, about double, but not too much higher than that.
All right. Looks like that's all the questions we have right now. So I'm going to go ahead and there we go. We'll swap back to me. And I'm going to share the screen with everyone once I make it work here.
Oh, so Dylan, while you're doing that, one last thing that I want to leave you guys with. Your rags that you use, those are combustible like any oil finish. So just be careful with that. If you make sure you dispose of your rags correctly, throw them in a rag can, or wet them down and then just let them dry, kind of not, spread out. So they're not like all crumpled up in a ball. So wet them down with water, let them dry, and then you can just throw them out. But just be careful with those rags, because they are combustible.
All right. There we go.